Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This time, the mind's eye. Yes, you're seeing inside my mind's eye. And if you are, and you listened to this podcast before, I'm sure you have. Otherwise, this is a weird place to start, but welcome. If you're looking in my mind's eye, you know what I'm thinking? Patreon.com/IBD. Go out there, support us. Get those extra bonus benefits. Patreon.com. It's very affordable. Check it out. It makes a great gift also. You know what is also a gift? The mind's eye. Here on It's All Been Checked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Shrek'd Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
Payne.
The people that listen to the episodes week to week probably appreciate your jokes, Keith. If you don't remember how we ended last week's episode, I'm sorry.
That's the Reddit I want to see, is people examining what Keith is talking about in the opens every week.
I mean, some of them we haven't even covered on the podcast what he's referencing. So that was Keith. Obviously, this is Jimmy-Jerome. We're here to talk the mind's eye. First impressions.
It was okay. I'm just there. I'm trying to. As I said, I actually was in pain during this one. I was hard to focus on certain things. Mm-hmm. I definitely think that I would have enjoyed it more under other circumstances. As Geordi episodes go, I thought this was actually pretty good, but I thought he did a lot of good work. LeVar Burton did a lot of good work in it, and they showed us some interesting things about the technology with his visor and so on. Yeah, I mean, the rest of it, I'm not. We'll have to pick through it. I'm not sure how I feel yet.
Yeah, I will. Full disclosure on my end, I also. I was not in pain like Keith was, but I've talked a lot about, I love watching these Star Trek episodes at 10 or 10:30 at night. It takes me back to when I was younger. When I watched this one, not the same. I was very tired, clearly. So there was a lot of rewinding. Not a lot, but a couple of parts where it was like, I either zoned out or my eyes closed, which is not a complete dismissal of the episode. In fact, my notes look like the notes I took in college at my 8 o'clock classes, because it's very scribbled as if I was falling asleep. The Cryosian candidate is what I called it.
I put Romulan candidate.
A reference to the Manchurian Candidate, which then, when I read about it afterwards, they were actually going for a remake of the Manchurian Candidate, which I think it's a great movie. I've never seen it, but it's iconic, and I know it's a great movie, and I recognize all those aspects of it. And also, The Simpsons did it. I think it kind of cuts both ways, and as we talk through it, we can get into that. Because as I tried to absorb it afterwards, all those aspects make it really interesting, because you got the Romulans and Klingons, and you're trying and these warring factions. But I feel like cramming all that into this 50 minutes of TV was a little too much, because I felt like they shorted us on some stuff, like exactly how the Romulans got to Geordi and that kind of and some of the other things. I would have liked either a longer episode, although I don't know if I would have liked it that much more. And when I thought about it, I was like, well, it's still a better episode than some of the ones where somebody either just gets possessed by a spirit or whatever, it still kind of felt that way. But
yeah, I was going to say this episode was but it was certainly not the same as last week. It was better than last week's. And I agree with, I think it was Keith said that this is the best Geordi episode thus far of the series. I liked Geordi in this episode. Mm-hmm. It was a good showcase of him. And while it was unfortunate what happened to him, there was some really good Geordi stuff here, and we finally got to see LeVar Burton doing something other than the lame stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even that shuttle ride at the beginning, there was just something. I like the wholesomeness of the future when you have career officers, and especially like a science-based officer, just kind of nerding out and just playing puzzle games with the computer and just.
Was he drinking?
Yeah.
I thought he was on autopilot, though, right?
Yeah. And he did the Geordi log to open, and he talked about how he was going to an AI seminar on Ryza, which was definitely about sex robots, right?
Right.
Oh, wow. That never occurred to me.
It's an artificial intelligence seminar on Ryza.
Is that
It's either about sex robots, or all the AI nerds just wanted someplace to
go to Ryza.
Yeah.
I think it's probably an excuse to go to Ryza, but was that the Picard planet or the Paradise planet?
No, Ryza's where Picard met Vosh.
Okay, yeah.
So I had a question about that too, is why would he take a shuttle there? Like, was it like, okay, the Enterprise has business over here, a couple planets away?
Yeah.
Because I wish they said that, because I just feel like the whole opening, the shuttle, the Romulans showing up, because they targeted Geordi specifically. They didn't just want Ensign whoever, Ensign Schmuck. who I don't want to disparage Jensen Schmuck. I mean, he does a great job, but they didn't want him. They wanted Geordi. So I don't know how what did they have to do to know that he would be in that space? And I wish we'd been told that. So
that didn't bother me. What bothered me about that scene was he asked how the weather was on Ryza, and the computer said it's climate controlled for optimal tourist comfort. Is all the computer said. I'm like, well, every species and every individual, because even among humans, we have very different ideas of what optimal comfort is. And so I know from other episodes that Ryza does have climate control to be like the optimal temperature, but at the same time, it's like optimal means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. You need to still give them the weather report, in my opinion. There was no warning for the Romulan ship either. I expected some type of alarm or something as it decloaked and came up behind the shuttle. Like Geordi had to see it visually.
Right.
Oh, he turned off Alexa.
So I spent a good part of the episode wondering if this was all on the holodeck.
Really?
Just
kind of like that episode where there was an episode. Was it Riker, the little boy, and they had the holodeck of the Romulans captured?
Yeah. Because I thought he wasn't able to hail the Enterprise, and just it seems like that maybe it's just me wishful thinking about the Federation and the neutral zone and all that. But I feel like somebody else would have noticed that Romulan ship, that bird of prey showing up. If he's on a shuttle, you can't go real long range with those unless you go through a wormhole or whatever. Whatever. So there had to be other entities nearby to me.
There are long range shuttles.
Yeah. Okay.
They've established that in Star Trek. I don't know if they've talked about much at this point, but I definitely know that there are long range shuttles they take for longer trips.
And he calls it Shuttle 7. But then it was the Onizuka, which I think we've talked about before. It's named after one of the astronauts from the Challenger. Ellison Onizuka was one of the astronauts on the Challenger.
So we'll go back to the Enterprise. Picard is talking to a Klingon. That Klingon's name is Ambassador Kell, played by Lawrence Dobkin, credited as Larry Dobkin. He's best known for Patton, Mike Hammer, The Ten Commandments, The Wild Wild West, obviously an older actor. He did die in 2002, but 218 credits. One of his last things was a run on Melrose Place.
Huh.
This is his only Star Trek credit, no Seinfeld credit. It's funny that we have a Star Trek podcast, so we always have to mention whether they have a Seinfeld credit or not. But that's
is this the older Klingon you're talking about?
Yes, the ambassador.
I wasn't sure if he was supposed to be the same character that we've seen before, but I guess he's not.
No, but he talks about how Picard's respected by the Klingon High Council, which I'm like, good. His reputation's getting around. I like that. I like that they're building that world and there's the references.
Do you think that he
uses Picard's human modesty, which I thought was kind of an odd thing or humility as a human thing.
Do you think that he would have been present for that honor episode where Picard went with Worf?
I mean, he definitely talked like he had not met Picard before. It was more of a reputation thing. But he might have been around because he clearly hangs out with the High Council.
He seemed to, he seemed to have some inside information about the Duras thing as well when he was talking to Worf.
Yeah.
So
I thought that talking to Worf bit was very interesting because he seemed to be very reluctant to work with Worf, which I guess was supposed to prove to us he's an honorable Klingon. Yet at the same time, he was kind of like, yeah, not everybody's sad that Duras is gone. We might be able to make some kind of deal here. Let's talk.
I almost felt like it was like an actual acknowledgement that he knew what really happened.
Yeah, it did kind of feel like that, but I'm not sure he knew what happened so much as he just knew Duras and didn't like Duras. Which I feel like anybody that knows Duras is not going to like Duras. So that part makes sense to me.
Yeah. To know him is to hate him.
Well, you would think.
Back to the Romulan ship. That double doesn't really look much like Geordi, does he?
That's one of my notes. That's another problem with me with that whole scenario is like, well, have fun on Rise. He's like, I'll see you. And I'm like,
he looks enough. Yeah. Like if you handed someone Geordi's driver's license and he had a visor on and everything, and you'd be like, okay, whatever. If you didn't know him personally, if you went back to the Enterprise, no.
I guess if you're at a hotel conference in Ryza for artificial intelligence sex dolls, they're just like, I don't even need to look at you here. Just take your name. Just take your.
Yeah.
But because somebody there would know Geordi. Right?
Geordi, exactly. That was my point.
Him.
He definitely has been to other artificial intelligence sex doll conferences.
I also wrote down that the fact that the Romulans were just like, he's close enough, racist.
See, I felt like that fake Geordi would probably pass for somebody that's not human, thinks all humans look a little bit alike.
Yes. yeah. Well, I guess we got to the same.
But not so much for other fellow humans.
And that's one other thing where I'm like, this is a holodeck or a dream that is like, yep, this guy is going to pass for Geordi. That guy at the conference trying to pretend like he's Geordi and getting into all kinds of shenanigans. That's my new alternate episode. It's much better than my old one. So that's my alternate episode.
Before we got to that part, I was writing this down because it occurred to me when I thought about this, though it didn't during the episode. The fact that they even had a double does seem to suggest that there was a real conference. Because I was starting to ask myself the question for like how they would have picked him up. Did they set him up to think that there was something so they would know how to intercept him? But
I think they just knew you have an artificial intelligence sex robot conference. Geordi's going to go, obviously.
Is it possible that replacement Geordi went and had those experiences and then they planted those in real Geordis?
That's what I was thinking.
That's the other thing I wrote.
That makes the memories more realistic.
Yeah.
And the time makes sense. So they're torturing Geordi and they're forcing him to see torture, then meadows, then horrors, which I thought they're probably just forcing him to see a bunch of girls rejecting him, right? That's the torture.
So on that subject, another note I should have written. So they were doing like a Clockwork Orange thing, or this is how
I wrote. Yep.
This is how you brainwash someone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it felt like a shortcut around here. Let me. We're describing such horrors. We're not going to show them to the audience, but Geordi's going to scream. So is he experiencing any physical pain, or is it just so awful that he has to go, oh my God,
So awful. I think it's Clockwork Orange. Turn it off.
Yeah.
Turn it off. Yeah.
Right.
So the shady Romulan in the corner, do you know who that is?
I only know because I read about it later.
Oh, you did read. Okay.
Yeah, it came up. Yeah.
Do you know?
No, I don't remember. Which scene are we talking about? Like in the chair room or something?
Multiple scenes. There was a Romulan in the corner that we only saw shadows. We never saw their face. Who had a very familiar voice.
Was it the Smoking Man?
It was not the Smoking Man. He was not in this one. But like Harrison Ford, I'm getting frantic. No, no bare naked ladies.
Let me say she's probably my second favorite female Romulan at this point.
Oh, that's cool.
Was it the fake Vulcan?
No.
Oh,
So Steven only knew because he looked it up. Yeah, I have to say, I knew this character was coming. I didn't remember when they were introduced. And so, but because I knew the character was coming, as soon as I heard the voice, I was like, I know who that is. And actually, the actress wasn't there. It was a body double, and they looped over her voice. She just recorded the lines, which is great. But that character is going to be back in the season finale, as well as a couple episodes early next season. So obviously, this was setting something up. But if Keith doesn't know, I kind of don't want to talk about it.
Thank you.
Let's just save it for the season finale.
Yep. I'll just go back to, I alluded to this early on, but how did the Romulans find Geordi? I mean, it's not really explained. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it for whatever reason, it sticks in my...
They have a cloaked ship. They're probably just hanging out around the Enterprise watching it until he left and then followed him.
Could be that. We also learned later there was also an inside man.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that was my one thought. Also,
I did not expect the inside man twist.
Yeah, me either.
That was...
I also expected us to show the person that was in the shadow. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk about the identity.
Right.
I give them credit for introducing this shady character that we don't see and setting up a future episode, because at this point, the series is so episodic. I mean, we get those like long-term references, but it's not like you have a villain in multiple episodes. That's kind of a new thing for the show, and I was very excited by that.
I love things like that. I'm surprised they would do it back then.
They didn't do it much. Like I said, I'm pretty sure they reveal who it is in the season finale, which is their second appearance. So,
still,
on other note, I think I already covered. No one knows Geordi is missing. Yeah, we already covered.
He's at the conference, so he's not missing.
Right. So only the people there that know it's not Geordi are like.
What would be really embarrassing is if Troy called him to say, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" and didn't even notice it wasn't him.
Is it possible that he told the people there that he's actually a Trill and he changed his host body? Is that possible?
A trio would never do such a thing. They would never reveal that.
That's true.
Well, for a lady, they would.
Yeah.
If they could get I shouldn't say for a lady. If they could get someone in bed, they would.
So they send Geordi into the Romulan holodeck, which was pretty clear right away it was a holodeck based on the Romulans still standing there. But he murders O'Brien, and we got a different view of the visor. It looked different.
Mm-hmm.
But the O'Brien scene, was tough for me because, first of all, we just had the one scene of them showing horrific images. So that, to me, I'm like, was that enough to make him murder O'Brien, his longtime friend, apparently? And then also the way he did it, where he was nonchalant. He pushes, instead of taking the empty chair, he pushes O'Brien's body out of the chair so he could take his chair. And then the people at the table are like, sure, sit with us. We don't care that you just murdered our seatmate.
Again, that's another awesome spot where, that was very holodeck, whatever, yeah.
It was funny, but it also was like, I thought you're training him for real world scenarios. This is not that.
Right.
Well, I think part of it is that he shouldn't, they want to make him feel good about the potential consequences. The point is, once he's done what he's done, they don't care what happens to him. So
sit down and everything's normal. I think the one Romulan is Sherlock Manson, I think is his name, because he's very into brainwashing. No, I'm kidding. That's a Charlie Manson.
I was like,
reference. What? No, sorry.
The Romulan that we see is Tieback, played by John Fleck, who's best known for Waterworld, Falling Down, Naked Gun 2.5, and Howard the Duck.
And he was in the Seinfeld episode The Heart Attack, where George thinks he's having a heart attack, and on the way to the hospital, the two EMTs get in a fight because one of them drops a chuckle, or I think one of them thinks the other one stole his chuckle or whatever, the candy, which is a terrible candy, and so they end up. I think the ambulance ends up crashing. So yeah, he was that guy. It was a very small role, but there are no small roles.
So he actually also guest starred in 3 episodes of DS9 as 3 different characters. Yeah. 1 episode of Voyager as yet another character, and then had a 7-episode arc on Enterprise as the same role in a reoccurring bit, and then also had a part on an episode of The Orville.
To go back to Geordi sitting down at 10 forward after killing it, I wrote down, and this is what the Manchurian Candidate was kind of about too, was connected with Lee Harvey Oswald or whatever, because maybe because Lee Harvey Oswald supposedly killed Kennedy and then went to the movies, although actually that's just where he went to hide. But it seems like they told him to just act normal and do normal things, and he went to the movies. So, and this whole thing is very Lee Harvey Oswald, depending on what you think about Lee Harvey Oswald. So anyway.
I don't think Geordi acted normal at all, because he gets back to the Enterprise and the first thing he does is go up to the bridge without unpacking, still carrying his luggage, which does not feel like something he'd normally do, even though he was being friendly. But then he and Troy, who I don't know that we've ever seen them like have a scene together, are suddenly best buddies. But they're like getting in the elevator and talking about his trip. And honestly, whether we've seen it or not, I buy it because they've all been senior staff. But at the same time, it's like it would have been nice if you got a hint or two before now.
Yeah, and should she have sensed that something was off? I guess not.
I was about to say, I think that's the point of. I think that was the point of the scene, to show that she didn't notice anything was wrong.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
That's good.
They mentioned this Klingon colony is the only Klingon colony on the border with the Federation, which makes absolutely no sense to me. Mm-hmm. They have a long border. There should be more than one colony. That just felt like a simplistic thing.
It's only a few hundred miles long.
That's why this colony is important.
I did like the shot of the Cryosian capital or whatever that was. I thought that was a cool effects look. As you know, I always loved those. And that was a good one.
Geordi mentions to Troy that he took 2nd place in the chess tournament, which brings me to my alternate episode, which is Geordi in an episode of The Queen's Gambit, where Anya Taylor-Joy beats him in chess at this major tournament where they're both like top competitors.
And then it's kind of the flip of the Barclay, because then later, no, maybe it's the same as Barclay, because once he's not brainwashed, he doesn't even know how to play chess.
Well, actually, it would probably be his double in the chess tournament, but I wanted to see LeVar Burton.
It would have been nice if they were clear about some of those things, like the theory about transferring his memories from the actual. And
that's where I would have liked a longer. It was like I said, I felt like it was a lot to smush in. I thought it was, and to me, the reward wasn't worth smushing it all in.
So Geordi goes 10 forward, spills his drink on O'Brien for some odd.
What does that mean? Yeah, that's the part I didn't get. It's like, was it is that him fighting the brainwashing and like, this is the best, I'm not going to kill him, but I'm going to dump a drink on him?
I don't think he was supposed to kill O'Brien because that would have blown his cover right then.
Oh,
I think maybe that was still just messing with him. Maybe that's what they had to do to like get the killing O'Brien plot out, was do something else similar. I don't know.
I think it was a tease for the audience, and also that seemed like a test run. Essentially, this is like, what can we make him do right now? Let's confirm that he's going to see this target and do something like that.
That would make sense because the Klingon ambassador had to trigger it, right? Because they mentioned the 3 times he was triggered.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
I think, Keith, you're probably right about that. It just wasn't that clear.
Oh, and I didn't write this down, but the one other thing I did like about this episode a lot was Data's investigation, Data getting to the bottom of things.
Yes.
I thought that was a very good, like, all right, I figured this out, now I figured this out. So I appreciated that too.
Yeah, that was cool. Data was well used.
Especially because if Geordi's brainwashed, Data's your top investigator.
Yes.
A couple points, actually. So the first thing my first note from the episode was, I started to wonder, wouldn't you want Data to go to an AI conference? But then I thought it probably wouldn't be good to send both of them off the ship at the same time in case one of, like the weekly crisis happens and neither of them are there, and no Wesley either. So they'd be like, well, I mean, you got O'Brien, but there's
Data's probably like, I already know everything about artificial intelligence I need to know. This is all beneath me.
Well, we might as well take our cyanide pills. We're done.
So the investigation, I loved actually Geordi's participation in it.
Yeah.
He legitimately seemed to not know that he was investigating himself. He was just going right through and finding it. So
my problem with the investigation was when they're like, there's only like 4 people on board that can do this. Like Geordi, Data, this person we've never heard of, which is fine. I think this is
Ensign Schmuck, I think, was the
whatever.
O'Brien.
And that's fine. I'm glad we didn't like focus on them. Right. But if those are your 4 suspects, given the episodes we've already watched already, aren't you checking out Data? Because he's brainwashed again?
Oh.
Yeah.
Just or controlled again?
It hasn't been that long. Yeah.
This isn't the first time. Well, yeah, it happened the ones with Dr. Soong, but there was also the weird thing with the clues. I guess they don't remember that. But still, I'd be suspicious of Data until you can prove that he's a working order.
Yeah.
But it seems like they were automatically clearing the investigators themselves, it seemed like, out of hand. But also, was the ambassador present during those kinds of conversations? Like, who could do this thing?
Yes.
I think he might have been. Yeah, he might have been kind of helping to just blow right past it. Like, well, I'm not going to throw suspicion. Just
Geordi's examining the phaser rifle that they got that the Klingon Governor Vogg, played by Edward Riley. That's the governor they were going to assassinate. He's best known for Highlander from the 80s, Chariots of Fire, and this role. He only has 38 credits. He will play a Cardassian in an episode DS9 as well. No Seinfeld. But anyway, Geordi's examining the phaser, and clearly in the 24th century, we still haven't enacted gun registries, nor do we track serial numbers on the weapons, because both of those things would have been a lot quicker and easier than figuring out the energy signature matched the Romulan replicator.
Even other parts of the galaxy were just like, you know what? Fine, keep your weapon, keep your guns. We're not going to mess with the Second Amendment. Gee, man, Chris.
Well, I mean, I think they still would have had some sort of counterfeit ID number or license that didn't trace to anything. They'd be like, oh, okay, then still, who did so.
Well, they didn't mention that.
I know they should have.
And I think the serial number would have been so advanced they couldn't just like sand it off.
So Keith is making the argument: if we have those gun laws, only galactic criminals are going to have guns. I hear him saying.
It takes a good guy with a phaser to stop a bad guy with a phaser.
Oh my God. My point, though, was that if they're going to go so far as to manufacture a rifle, they're going to make some token attempt at least to make it pass, and then they would still have to resort to either looking up a false lead or just not having a lead to go on at all.
Yeah.
Now we are going to get letters with a lot of misspellings and run-on sentences, but we are going to get actual letters.
That's fine. Bring them on. If you're pro gun nut far right, you're not watching this.
I was going to say, if you're still hanging with us, well,
thanks. You, I guess.
Masochism.
But if you're like racist or hate-filled or whatever, I don't want you listening.
They probably have a target with our faces on.
They hate listening.
Or worse.
So at one point, the ambassador Kel, as they're getting close to these Klingon ships might blow up the Enterprise, he asks Picard if he can beam down. At that point, I'm thinking he's fleeing the boat because he doesn't want to get destroyed with it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet then we, next scene, see him still in his quarters on the Enterprise. He didn't leave. He's hanging out for Geordi to come talk to him, which that reveal, man, I did not see coming at all. I was like, that was a good twist.
Yeah.
Crusher is working the night shift, apparently, when Geordi comes in because he can't sleep. Why is she working the night shift? Why is Nurse Agua not working the night shift?
There is no night.
I had this thought last week, too, which is, I know if you're the chief medical officer, you're the chief medical officer, but, we had a couple episodes on TOS where Mabengo was the guy.
Yeah.
And I feel like we don't have those on TNG.
I think we had one episode of TOS with Mabengo.
The Vulcan medical officer.
Salar.
Yeah, and we don't ever see her again, right?
She gets name dropped a few more times. Yeah. She's already been name dropped a few times, but we don't see her again.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Well, I mean, she ended up playing a more prominent character.
So we get to the point where Data's figuring it out, which is great. Geordi, they're cutting back and forth, and Geordi's approaching. I had to think that his mind control or brain wiping or whatever was really, really good because he was set on his target. O'Brien distracts him, and he goes and helps O'Brien without missing a beat instead of going through with the kill. I feel like that takes really advanced. You'd think he'd just shove O'Brien aside and pull out the phaser at that point.
That's a good time to bring up again the problem with the way that they depicted the brainwashing process, which just seemed wholly inadequate or rather backwards for future technology.
Yeah.
To have him to go to the trouble of plugging those things into his synapses and just showing him pictures that are disturbing. I don't know.
Well, this won't be the last time somebody takes advantage of Geordi's visor for ill purposes, but we'll wait for those. So then I love Data calling Worf, like making those connections, calling Worf, telling him, stop Geordi. That was great.
These are things that people would probably try to do in real life. They would say, they wouldn't try to run down. They were just like, hey, get that guy.
See, I was really afraid we were just going to have Data bursting in and not calling ahead. And it made sense to call ahead. I give him credit for that. I'll give the credit to the writer of this episode, Rene Echevarria, which we talked about. He's a big producer of DS9.
Oh, yeah.
The story was by him and by Ken Schaefer, who this is his only writing credit for. Looks like he's mostly a script coordinator for the Munsters Today in the 80s. And What a Dummy in the early 90s.
Oh,
I thought so too.
I think... no, that's the name of the show. No, I think Renee's influence here, because he does DS9, which is all dark and twisty and war stuff. I think I get where his influence comes in here. And we've got gripes, but overall, I thought it was a decent episode. It's not one of the best, but I thought it was decently put together. Some cool twists. I like after the ambassador's exposed and he asks for asylum, Picard's like, sure, after your name's cleared.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was great. That was some good Picard sass.
Which is what made me originally my alternate episode was Klingon Justice, because I feel like Klingon Justice is like Drumhead. To go back to the Drumhead, it's very like that. It's like they have like a 99% conviction rate.
Yeah.
So like, well, if you're here in court, you're probably guilty. So guilty, and you've dishonored us by somebody accusing you. You've brought great dishonor on Klingons and your family.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I also really dug the last scene where Geordi's talking to Troy and she's trying to prompt memories. Like, but I remember everything. And then she talks about being a long road. I don't think they follow up on this, which is very much like Uhura getting your memory wiped. And we'll never
that's what I wrote down. I thought this was it sounded like a better, more logical approach. And hers was a little different, but not entirely.
Well, one,
she had her mind erased or whatever.
This one makes sense if it happens off screen and we don't really see the effects, even though we want to see the effects. Yeah. But I thought it was a pretty powerful last scene. And really cemented for me that this was Geordi. This is good Geordi. It took 4 seasons. We're finally getting good Geordi.
Yep. I love those reaction shots and everything.
LeVar Burton's a wonderful actor. And if you actually give him material, he rises to it.
Yep. Yeah. Although he did not look as good in his pink nightgown as Nichelle Nichols did when she was getting her memory back. But
Is that your fashion note?
But of course, fashion. Of course, nobody looks as good as Nichelle. It's a very short list of anybody that looks better than Nichelle Nichols. So the Romulan pajamas, which I think we've seen them in those before, and they just still don't look great. The other one is, and maybe this is a repeat too, the 10 forward wait staff all had green.
Yeah.
The green look. Have they had those before?
I think so.
Okay. I like them.
Yeah.
Whether I've seen them before or not. And I did look. Mabenga was in 2 episodes.
Was he in 2?
He shows up in that which survives briefly.
I thought he was only in 1. Okay.
Yeah.
The original series had so few characters that were in more than 1.
In my mind, like I said, I've said this before on here, me and my brother and sister were like, more Mabenga. When we played Star Trek, Mabenga always showed up.
Nice.
And so in my mind, I think that's why he was in 12 episodes, but it was only 2.
We are 55 years overdue for Mabenga action figure. Why there's never been one, I don't understand.
I will buy it.
I will too. Absolutely.
Those are all the notes I have.
Yeah, I'm done with notes as well. Other to say it was directed by David Livingston, one of our regulars.
I presumed that. That's for you,
Oh,
Keith.
wow.
That is for you, Keith.
Score. Maybe I have to change my have a drink with the Steven. Although we've had many drinks together. So.
1 drink, because after 2, then it's all kinds of ridiculous puns.
Have we ever just had 1 drink together? I don't think so.
Oh, I had one more note. I referenced this a few weeks back. I can't remember which episode, but the fact that the episode was called The Mind's Eye made me think of the Scott Pilgrim quote I mentioned, where when Scott defeats Todd, the mind-reading vegan, by thinking real hard about something in his mind's eye or whatever. So when I saw the title, I'm like, I thought of Dagger of the Mind. I thought of one of the first Star Wars novels.
You think that was a purposeful reference to Dagger of the Mind?
Maybe. Yeah, and they just threw I in because it was Geordi.
Or just they wanted some connection, because isn't that the original series brainwashing?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Who is your annoyance?
All right, mine is every Klingon not named Worf.
Every Klingon not named Worf? You didn't like the governor?
Eventually I did, because I thought he was right.
Yeah.
So everyone but him and him.
I have a hard time picking an annoyance this week. I'm going to go with the shadowy Romulan, because they just need to step into they need better lighting on their bridge.
Yes.
Step into the light. Yeah, you can't see anything in the shadows. Come on. Yeah. Keith?
You know, I'm torn since you mentioned that about. I kind of want to pick whoever designed the brainwashing procedure.
The shadow. That's the shadowy Romulan, I assume.
It feels a little on the nose to pick Voss or the Vogg, the governor.
Mm-hmm.
I
didn't mind the governor.
He's like, I'm here to be Duras, essentially. So
yeah, I mean, but like Steven said, he was right, and he wasn't as obnoxious as Duras. And he had legitimate concerns, so I have a hard time getting annoyed or hating him.
Yeah, he was very Commodore-like in a sense, but yeah, he turned out he was right, because he was like, would you do this? I think there's something wrong here. It's like, yeah, you know what? You were right. We're going to give you this one. And that's what Picard said. He's like, you know what? You do what you do your thing, and let us know if you need us to help out anymore.
Who would you like to have a drink with this week?
So what was the name of the woman that Geordi supposedly hung out with on Risa? Because I wrote Johnny.
I forgot it.
Which
that's sort of like what it sounded like he said. I don't remember now.
We never saw her. We never cast her, so
it would be her.
Okay.
She sounds like a lot of fun.
Okay, so Geordi's vacation hookup.
Yes.
I'm going to say the bartender.
The bartender? That's a good choice. Oh, I'm a little stuck here. I guess I'm going to go with LeVar Burton and just say like, how does it feel to finally, after 4 years, be used appropriately? I don't know. I'm going to go with that, because whatever.
What about the Packlet episode?
What about the Packlet episode?
I'm trying to remember if he was decent in that. I mean,
I think
Geordi,
he was fine. Yeah. He was a little whiny, but I think he was fine. You're right. That one wasn't so bad. I think maybe in some of the early episodes he was used fine. He just wasn't used much, and then once they started using him a lot, he got
trying to
annoying. Yeah, I think that's probably what I'm griping about. Honestly, while I'm kind of out on this episode, I liked a lot of elements of it, and the more we talked about, the more I'm like, I actually kind of like this episode. So I want to start at least in the middle here. Brothers. Better or worse than Brothers?
Oh, that's tough.
Really?
If you'd gone above or below either side, probably I'd be like, oh, whatever. But Brothers, I keep not. I think
Brothers
I get.
decide.
No, I keep giving it like unfair passes. I think.
Keith gets to decide first, above or below.
This is where I feel like it's too like personally iconic for me, more memorable.
That's
Brothers
fine.
is than.
I have to be honest. I picked it primarily just to make you squirm.
What's below it?
Devil's Due. It's not going above Devil's Due.
Yeah.
So we got up to this territory last time, so we should know it's there.
Close to it. I mean, we ended up a little below it. We started about this territory and then went down. We only talked about this territory because Steven went. But realistically, I don't think we're ranking this above Devil's Due. So I'm not really going to make you pick Brothers. We'll go below. So Future Imperfect, Keith. Better or worse than Future Imperfect?
Better.
Better than Future Imperfect.
It's gone. Like it's probably the recency bias or whatever, but still,
I think I'd go above it as well. Steven?
Yeah, I thought coming in I would have gone below, but I feel like even with my misgivings about this episode, I think there's a lot of really good stuff here.
Yeah.
Like if you just read me the synopsis of it, I'd be like, very basic. I'd be like, okay, I'll see you guys next week. But I think the Manchurian Candidate it's a tried and true formula. And yeah, I thought it was well done. I thought they did a pretty good job with it to not annoy me too much, which is very faint praise. But yeah, I think I'd go above.
I think that, as I was saying, I was distracted during it and feeling like, I would probably like this better if I were fully, feeling better physically. But once they got to the investigation, I think I was on board at that point. It drew me in. So I think that, gives it. Yeah,
I think when all those elements snapped in, it, like I said early on, it got me out of, oh, well, God, it's possessed by another, controlled by some other people. So I thought they did enough things for me to get out of that. I don't like this mode thing. So.
Yeah. So that makes it number 13 of 24. So like right there in the middle of the season so far, which is fair, I think. I was wrong. I mentioned last week that Wesley returns this season. He does not return this season.
Geordi's supposed date on Risa was Jonek or Jonek.
Okay.
Jonek. So that's who I want to have a drink with.
I'm just going to leave it Geordi's vacation hookup. I think that's. Or we can't even see her.
Geordi's doubles vacation.
Vacation hookup.
That's probably fair.
Where did the Romulans find that guy?
Huh.
Probably a Romulan that had plastic surgery. Right?
Oh, yeah, they could be.
Maybe.
To go back to Enterprise. I thought maybe they were in a cantina on an Outer Rim world.
Just an actor they hired.
Yeah.
Got him on Craigslist.
The Romans are like, all right, that's close enough. Yeah, that's pretty good. Here, read this.
Next week, in theory, when a female crew member is infatuated with Lieutenant Commander Data, he decides to give a romantic relationship a try. Also, the Enterprise finds itself having to maneuver through a dangerous nebula.
See, I wish he'd stopped at the end of the first part, but now we have to have this other thing going on. We'll see. It might be great.
Until then, live long.
On Risa. And prosper.
I would probably not live long on Risa, but I would be very happy.
You're right. You wouldn't care.
Sweet. I
should have said prosper and been in the optimal climate.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?